Everyone, so welcome to another edition of Walking with Misha, this slightly informal pod and walk. Right now I'm at the corner of Helmholmes Platz in Prenzlauer Berg. I'm waiting for my laundry to finish, so I thought I would do a small tour. When I now stop the camera, I'm looking south, and on the other side of the buildings at the end of the road is Platz, named after a famous German illustrator, died maybe 100 years ago, almost. Very popular with people from tourists and people from South Germany. The joke is that that's where all the Bavarians live. The street at the end of the road is Danziger Straße. Trams and stuff go there. So this Helmholtz Platz is a square. That's, by the way, Café Liebling, which is also famous. So there's a nice little park in the middle of this block here. Has a youth house, has a small little lawn. What's quite... I should apologize if I'm not always... if the motive in view is not always centered on things and as perfect as it could be. I'm also keeping an eye on where I'm looking, plus carrying 2 bags of laundry. So one of the nice things about Prenzlauer Berg is all the wide boulevards. In many other places they're narrower and the street for pedestrians is smaller. So around this square is quite popular. And there's shops and friseurs and cafes, hairdressers and so on. Surrounding it, there's kindergarten for children, and lots of green space, public space. Nice little sculptures here. Try not to film too many people who want to preserve their privacy. And there's a community house on my left. I'll film that later. In the history of Berlin is a bit of a synthetic city. It didn't exist in its current form until, it only started taking place in 1870 when Greater Germany was formed and they needed a big capital. So they took what used to be Berlin and fused it with a bunch of nearby towns and villages to make a Greater Berlin. So Prenzlauer Berg, where I am now, is north of what you could say is the center, Mitte. It literally means the center. But before then, you had the Mitte, Neukölln, bits of it, which is kind of also sort of Kreuzberg today, which is southeast Berlin. You had Stieglitz, southwest of Berlin. You had Charlottenburg, which is where the local emperor hung out. It's named after his late wife, Charlotte. Here's some of the community houses. This is quite literally named a community house. Maybe closed because of Corona. And as in all festive places, there's a table tennis table. There's a park for young children there. So anyway, as I mentioned, there was Mitte, middle of the so-called Mitte, middle of Berlin. In the southeast there was Neukölln, southwest there was Stieglitz, to the west of Mitte, what we now know as Charlottenburg. Yeah, that was Charlottenburg. And then there was Pankow to the northeast of Mitte. Sorry about all the confusion. This would be ripe for a data visualization. And so right now I'm in the middle of Mitte and Pankow, and this used to be a village area, and this square, Helmholtz Platz, used to quite literally be a farmer field. And when Greater Germany and Greater Berlin were formed, they built up the areas between, like basically the areas between the nearby urbanized towns. So so yeah, this used to be a village, it used to be a farming area, and now you have these houses which are quite from the turn of the century. I would venture that most of the old houses are from this age, because that's where like Greater Berlin was built up. You have some slightly older buildings which are in these kind of older parts that I mentioned before, but so I don't know, it's a bit, of course, all these modern buildings that you see, like where I'm looking now, used to, well, basically, most likely there's been a bomb that hit it in the Second World War, because already 100 years ago, Berlin had about the same amount of houses that it has now. Berlin hasn't expanded outwards so much. If you look at a map or a satellite photo, you'll see that it's still surrounded by forests, and there hasn't been a huge amount of kind of expanding an area. But where there has been new housing built, then that's where houses were damaged during the Second World War. Something like a quarter of houses, particularly in central Berlin, were damaged during the Second World War. And when you venture further out of the center of Berlin, then you get like less damage. One of my favorite places where I used to stay is further up the street, and that sort of just had its roof damaged by a bomb. And that was like considered light damage for Berlin. This area used to be in East Germany, and according to a friend, there was not a whole world of renovation or reparation done during the East German time. There's what used to be a nice little hangout and cafe. Slightly closed because of the Corona time now. Yes, this is certainly a place for young people and parents. These courtyards are quite nice. It's nice that they haven't yet built a building here. Quite a nice life in all the courtyards. I'm going to one of the more popular streets. Anyway, so where was I? I think I forgot. Anyway, there's some nice old residential streets here. I'm heading towards one of the more popular streets that people hang out in. That's coming up here. The plan is to go to Schönhauser Allee, which is to my left. It's a road that basically goes northeast from the center towards Pankow, this older center. And there's a nice metro line. So there's certainly been a lot of good work in planting trees in Berlin. Now I remember. So during the socialist East German days, they didn't do a whole lot of renovations of the houses. So let's say that it was sort of organic in East German style, and one of my researcher friends who used to hang out here 20 years ago, he mentioned when he visited here 5 years ago that it looked like a completely different world. Yeah, this would also be a sort of a place where you would find gentrification and so on, but oh yeah, that's something that you should listen to the wonderful Pushback Talks podcast about and watch the Push film. But I'll save that for a different day and just cover the architecture here and the social life while I'm doing my laundry. Further up the street in Pankow, like 1-2 kilometers from here, it's much more residential, much more quiet. Many successful young people that move up here. There used to be a cinema Zion at this street corner. Also, many apologies if the audio drops out. I'm holding 2 bags, the camera, and I'm trying to hold a microphone. So, with my weaknesses here. Danziger Straße is at the end of the road. I'll put on my little mask now as I'm heading into areas with more people. So now you hear a muffled version of me. And yeah, it's I mean, what's quite nice about this kind of like this urbanization of Berlin is that it's grown sort of from outwards in rather from inwards out, as a lot of older cities like Vienna. So in Vienna, which has 2 million people, and I guess Berlin has 3.5 million people, then in Vienna all the districts are tightly integrated, and you have all the central functions of the city sort of in the middle, all the shops or the main shops in the middle, where the sort of construction, because it's sort of grown from a center outwards, and in Berlin, because it was sort of, it's started in the middle and then sort of pulled in all the surrounding areas and urbanized them, then there's a bit of separation between the different city parts, and so you get these. Oh, there's a small door. So you and some sort of organic tiles. So you get these sort of urban in-between areas where there's kind of not a lot of social function, but just kind of houses, and it feels like 12 different villages and towns that lead their own little separate life, and that have 12 distinct characters. And unlike, for instance, Vienna, where you might have one street with, I don't know, 5 different hiking shops, then in Berlin you have 12 different city parts of town, each with its hiking shop. And so you don't, they sort of, in terms of the shops and services, they replicate things on a simpler scale, while here in Berlin, in each of the towns, where in something like Vienna, where all the shops of a certain kind are on the same street, then you get much more specialization developing. Of course, in the center you have all the financial sector in one area, so you might get some more specialization there and growth there. But it's the joke is a bit that people sort of might not leave their part of town that much, except if there's like a highly specialized job that they need to do in the center or something. So unlike maybe one of these more older concentrated towns, or like medieval towns where people move through the city quite naturally because the different specialized things are concentrated in different parts of the town. And so I'm not sure of the exact history of how they ended up with this nice train track above the ground here, but it is very nice. I think the beginning of the metro development in Berlin happened somewhere at the end of the 1800s. There was certainly a lot of work. Oh yeah, admire the dog here. I was aiming a bit too high. There's a nice cinema complex on the other side of the street, battling it out with trying to survive during Corona times. Between here and Danziger Straße, maybe 1 kilometer down the road, there's some shops and cafes. It's not the liveliest of place. It's kind of quite relaxed. The next hot spot was like the street where I walked by this direction, and some things more up towards the Schönhauser Allee center. So I just walked on Stargarder Straße, and Schönhauser Allee is also note the additions on the tops of the buildings. So here we go. A bit sharply here. So some of my friends from Finland pitched a suggestion to make this into an official bicycle track. Right now it looks like a place where it would be good for horses and carriages to go, but let's see. I can even remove my mask now so you can hear me better, hopefully, when the train isn't passing overhead. So as a funny little anecdote, it appears that mostly there's only tram services in East Berlin. The tram network was never really built up in West Berlin. I don't have an overview of where the tram networks start or stop, but basically by the time you go as far as the main station, which is slightly in West Berlin, then the tram tracks stop. Have lots of nice turn of the century houses here. Let's see. Just need to change my bags around. Some nice graffiti in the middle of the picture. Touching a small breather. This is quite a marvel of construction, and a quite nice, pleasant place to walk at night. Provides more space than the sidewalks at the sides of the street. Let's see. Yeah, in my bags. So it might not be completely necessary that I walk all the time, but just add that there's a nice parklet here. Looks like it's mostly used for bicycle parking right now. So nice Buddhist flags at the balcony on top. One is trying to make some more bicycle lanes here, but it's still very much a work in progress. Unfortunately, Berlin is the big city in Europe that has the most bicycle fatalities per person. So while there's a lot of enthusiasm for biking, it's Quite literally, what doesn't really make you stronger around here. Take a moment to breathe a bit. Parkwood here. Plus my favorite clothes repair shop on the other side. Sorry about that. Maybe I should invest in wireless microphones rather than wired ones. Let's see. This is like getting run down. Wait for the car to stop, cross. Complex. Look back. Might be a bit difficult to see, but not all houses are in stellar shape. Attempted building a new house that looks a bit like an old one. The beef by the brickwork is probably just 5 centimeters deep, and then there's insulation and a concrete structure at the other end. But better than a completely new looking house. There's a sports park at the other side of the street now, where you see the light towers, the white light towers at the end. Maybe not so much anymore. That's Malma Park, where the road used to run. You could say that the old East German bits here are more interesting than the old West German bits just on the other side. And well, I could add that Oh, there's a photo shoot going on here. Prenzlauer Berg has long been a place for people of differing opinions. So, by the way, I'm going to a small tour of the metro station here. I'll put on the mask just in case. Prenzlauer Berg, where I am now, used to be for long used to be a place of people thinking a bit differently. So you had during the Second World War, this was a place where there was a lot of people dissenting to the Nazi regime. What a nice harmony of trains. So during the Second World War, this was one of the concentration points of, not concentration camps, but it's a higher concentration of people dissenting to the Nazi rule. During the Cold War, this was also a center of people dissenting to the Soviet rule. And not too far away here, nice advertisement for the German opera here. It's quite amusing. There's a few more around here. So during the Cold War, this was a place this was kind of a lot of dissenting to the Soviet rule were here, and one of the first places where the wall came down, or actually the first place where people went through the wall, is about 1 kilometer from here, or 2 kilometers from here, at what is today Helmholtz Straße. It's actually quite funny. Speaking of which, it's funny that the East Germans had this thing for the Nordic countries. So a bit other 1 kilometer up in the opposite direction, there's areas that all have Nordic names. So there's the Finnische Straße, the Finnish street, and Schwedenstraße, Dänische Straße, Visbystraße, and a few others. So one can almost feel at home as a Nordic person here, and certainly there's a lot of Nordic people living in Prenzlauer Berg. So here's another one of the huts, one of the center points of Prenzlauer Berg. So looking straight down here is, maybe I should go there. It's there's Allee, which actually go and have a look there. So that's one of the main shopping and hangout streets. One of the places that this is, that Prenzlauer Berg is maybe the most famous for. At the moment to enjoy the jazz and the traffic. So this road leads to Malma Park. It's at the other end. There's a big fair and market there at weekends, lots of bands and everything. Maybe a little less so in Corona times, but so yeah, Allee is sort of the link between Prenzlauer Berg and Mitte. You end up at Straße when you get down Allee. It goes down the hill. Yeah, Prenzlauer Berg literally has mountain in its name. We're a bit higher up with all these nice wide streets. It's also a good place for fresher air. A lot of air circulation here, like for people like me. Let's see. All these adventurous bicyclists. So let's see. I might not go that much further down here. We can save that for a different walk, but it's certainly a very nice street. It goes on for about a kilometer. Let's see. So on this map we're at Straße now, and Allee goes off to the southwest to Mitte. And we started the walk here at Helmholtz Platz and went northeast and then northwest to Stargarder, through Stargarder Straße, and then we're down there again. And you can see the Finnish street there, the Icelandic street there, the Danish street there, Straße there, Straße, all the Nordic names. Funny, now I'm filming, I'm noticing the metros going by all the time. It's only about 1-2 o'clock, so it'll be complete rush hour, but it's interesting how they've blended the different ages of the buildings. You have all these additional rooftop places. Quite a nice graffiti area here, or graffiti on this building here. Buildings of varying levels of maintenance, and this nice folksy sausage curry roast place here. Nice reference to the emperor, one of the old rat emperors here, I guess. And going back to the thing. My favorite cafe is there on the corner. I used to hang out there a lot until it closed for takeaway only about a year ago. So maybe not so hip, but one of the main streets here again, Danziger Straße. I started the video by looking towards this. The video starts about 500 meters north, it's just a bit further up the street. Doing my laundry now, so I'll finish it. I'll circle back to the laundry a bit. See, I think there's like corona testing place on every street corner here. I've passed a few, so I haven't pointed them out. Now we're looking due east towards deeper and more boring bits of Berlin. It's all very extravagant here too. Old phone repair shop here on my right, and They have some dear old phones, some good old Nokia, even a Nokia 6310 for 39 euros. Should be very popular in Finland. And elsewhere. One of the new electric mobility deals here. And soon coming up on my right is the Kulturfabrik. It's an old beer factory which turned into a cultural Kulturbrauerei, which turned into a cultural place where also the 2014 Open Knowledge Festival was, where I met a lot of people and hung out in my open data role. So as you can see, the level of repair of buildings was a bit varied after East Germany got money again after the end of the 90s. So you can see it's basically the same building but repaired differently on the left and right. So lots more details on the version on the left and really the basic version to the right. You see this also on the other side of the street. You can see that in the light. And also here, so you have really the basic repair version of these buildings plus the more elaborate older versions. And yeah, jokes about. If you walk up this street a few hundred meters, you get to where I started. And yeah, let's say that for now. Take care and keep well and healthy.